with this release that's already live as well. So I think I pretty much know everyone on the call, but I'm just for those perhaps who I may not for some reason is I'm Adam. I'm one of the co-founders of CloudOlive, and prior to CloudOlive, I worked at Auditask for a good decade or so, near on 10 years, and we used to always, as a sales rep and sales manager and all the rest of it, we used to not like it when IT companies that we were speaking with had a large or a proportion consumption-based business, because we knew hand on heart that it wasn't an amazing fit for the Auditask system to handle. It was always a little bit of a sort of slowed things down. So it's been on our radar for an extremely long time, to see if there is a way that we can help companies have true confidence across some of the more varying lines of business that they may be in or may be looking to get in the future. So that's what we're going to go through today. So the module that we're describing it as is just consumption, okay? And when we discuss the consumption, that the main business lines, although it's really taking data and creating a one-time item to make sure you're making the margin that you're anticipating, really the flow. The things that really generally jump out would be Azure, Telco, and perhaps print. But if there's something a little bit different in your own business line, again, the process is really taking information and making sure on a one-time basis you're making the revenue you're anticipating. So let's get into it. So we'll dig into the problem area itself and what we've learned and seen while speaking with just MSPs for many moons now. We will go through a live demo of it, and likewise just give you a sneak peek of or an idea of what to expect in the next couple of weeks in the latest release coming. And then after that, we have a little sneak peek of what's coming down the road very, and hopefully have some time for a little bit of Q&A as well. I would say, as always, right, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. Myself or a colleague will be monitoring them, and we'll try to answer it as we go, or certainly, hopefully, we'll have a few minutes at the end to address them. Alrighty. So, as I mentioned, when we were selling Auditask, and the reason why it was just difficult was that consumptions can be there this month and not there next month, and managing that on a service by service level on a recurring service. And similar deal with ConnectWise as well, right? If you've got a count of one, or you've got a count of something, and it might not be there next month. So a really good example would be an end client has international calls in April. That same end client doesn't have any of those types of services or calls in the subsequent month. So you need to manage that every single time. Like, you need to touch every single service, validate every single service. Whereas it is easy just to go, if it's not there, don't create it. If it is there this month, then create it and make sure we make the money that we're anticipating. And that's why it's always been a tricky concept for many MSPs to manage. And we've always wanted to just be able to go, if you've got a vendor you resell, rely on CloudOlive to be able to manage all of that workflow with you and on your behalf, okay? And this is just an important piece of that puzzle. So we'll dig into some of the unique challenges. So we got the calls, telco, whatever you want to call it, whereby, again, something's there this month, not there the next. And that could be on the same for every one of these, where we got Azure in the middle, could be AWS, could be other cloud providers that you may be working with. But the real challenge for all of these are the things vary so wildly, or could vary, I should say, could vary so wildly on a monthly basis. They could be there for a month or two and then not be there and then come back. And managing that from a services or a recurring agreement in ConnectWise world and an addition is you just need to look at every single thing every single month. And for print, for those who are managing that as a business line, like taking last month, what is it this month, taking the delta, black and white versus colored, has it changed, yes or no, or is it zero? We don't add it, or do we need to add it? And these are workflows that everybody's needing to handle. So the way that we've learned and the way that we've understood MSPs managing this is one of these 4 ways, where there are plenty that we've spoken with. It's like, we don't want to go down that path, which is a shame, because there is money to be made, providing you've got the confidence that you're able to efficiently put that through the business, or you get a kickback from a provider. So, hey, do you know what? Third party telco provider, as an example, you invoice our customers directly. Again, like it's doable. And you get a kickback for that. Like, there's some pros and cons to all of these things, but managing or having like that formal relationship and not like taking that to another party to take care of it. Like, I don't know about you guys, I would much rather manage more of that and own more of the relationship. And like, if there are any stuff, that we'd much rather be able to own it ourselves. And also, if you go down that path, oftentimes the data then does not exist within the relevant PSA as well. So truly from a, hey, I want to see how much this customer is, like how much we're making or not making, truly granularly on this client, it means that you're unable to achieve that outcome through the PSA, which is really why you buy those systems oftentimes in the first place. And or it takes a huge amount of time to get it right every single month. So what the world can look like, same concept, right? So we'd built 80-90% of this with the previous module, in terms of taking extremely fragmented data sets or huge data sets and super ugly things, and being able to ingest that and organize it in a way that lines up perfectly to the way in which you have the line items within your PSA. Likewise, in turn, whatever goes onto the client invoice in the future. Okay, so same can happen here. So whether you break things apart, whether you have a single line item, it makes no difference whatsoever. To us, it's really just how we build the relevant identifiers and do exactly that: collapse or break things apart. Like the whole idea here is, and we'll show some flexibility that we knew we needed to deliver in the first instance, in terms of you make a certain percentage at a vendor level in general, but hey, this customer has a specific arrangement for whatever reason. How are you actually going to manage? How are you going to help managing that? So let's actually dive into this now. So a couple of things. So this is all managed from the reconciliation module, where the bulk of our clients work from every single month. Okay. And you will notice now there's one vendor that has a slightly different label on it called charges. And the vast majority of your vendors that are all on a recurring basis won't need to worry about this at all. It's really for those other vendors that you want to bring into your PSA of choice. And you want to have a much simpler and easier way to do just that. So where we've tagged this is within CloudOlive now, for every single PSA, right? These tick boxes here, when we have this off initially, it's only going to offer you the pushback. This one here, when you click that on, this new tick box arrives here. I'll actually just show you another one that won't already have it set up, whereby you've just got pushback there. When I click that, it then offers me the opportunity to turn this vendor into a charges consumption piece, right? And that's you indicating to us, hey, we're going to treat this quote unquote vendor in a slightly different light, because we don't want to just pair it to something that's always going to be there from a recurring perspective, where it's usage based now. We're going to just push this in once, and we want CloudOlive to take care of that workflow. The other thing that we can do from here, okay, is if you know you make a certain percentage margin in general across a vendor, let's say it's universal, right? For Azure, we make X percent universally. Every single client is the exact same. Great. You can then key this in here once. And the reason why we want to key this in here, just optionally, right? The reason why we want to pair this now is it's then good because we're going to see new costs coming in every month, that in order to address the uplift or to make sure you make the 10% every single month, the system's going to do some calculations in the background. All right. So when I come into Azure now, so we import it the exact same way, the mappings nearly identically perform in the same manner, okay? You will notice in this screen here, however, you might notice there's a couple of columns that are missing to what we're used to having, such as the CRM unit quantity. Reason being because we don't have that quantity in this inside Autotask or ConnectWise at this moment. We've got nothing to compare it against. So the information we're showing here is obviously the client name back to the PSA contract name. So for now, everything's identical. We've got the service that we're going to be pairing with into Autotask or ConnectWise now, or the product in either of those systems. And just to delineate, like forever for Autotask, it's always been we pair it to a service. When we do the mapping now, same work, right? Company, we pick the contract, nothing changes there. However, when we now select from this section here, this is actually pulling from your entire catalog, your entire product catalog, both from a ConnectWise product ID perspective or from a Autotask product ID perspective as well. It's not a service in AT. It's certainly not something that's keyed in at the individual contract. But we certainly don't have all of these. These are all of our hardware. These are all of our one-timers. These are all of our items. So if I now just pair that with my relevant service, or my product, I should say, and I'll just submit that now. So that's everything ready to rock and roll at this point. Another thing we'll note here is that some of them, you notice, have a 15% margin, a 12% margin, whereas everything else, if you recall, we set it at a 10% margin that we want to make. So by default, everything else is just being keyed in at 10%. However, we can now override this at a line item by line item level and go, this thing should be a different amount for whatever reason. This piece of the puzzle is also the same now on all recurring service items now as well. Historically, if you recall, if you had this feature, like if we were solving this, it was oftentimes in the formulas and in the templates. Like we can do away with all of that now and just, you can just key it in at a line item level. This is now going to remember based on this client, this service, or this ID every single month. Oh yeah, I'm not 10%, I'm something else. Okay, so when we actually do, and again, over here, there's no pushback, right, for a unit count perspective because it's a slightly different workflow, but it is very much managing around the cost that we've got here. We just wanted to display the fact that we can have, if you had reserved instances broken apart in a different way, or you roll them all into one, if like for this example, we've kept it very simple. Everything's unit count 1. We just collapse all of the costs into one line item. We override it. We call it a unit count 1. And here the unit cost and the total cost are going to always match because it's the same. That times 1 equals 1, that amount there, of course. So how do we push this back in? So right now we've done the mapping. And what we want to do now is we want to make sure that all of these are pushed back. And the way that we do this here is we go click on pushback. And here's the calculations that it's doing. Okay, so we're going, all of this is 1, and then it's done the relevant calculation based on us making 10% margin at the vendor level. If you recall, if I do it down here where it's 15, it's overridden that amount and given us the correct number that we want to be creating within the relevant PSA. So from here, we update. We've selected an effective date here as of May 1, only because our reconciliation is in the month of May. That's it. That's the only reason why it's done that. So if we're in May and you wanted to do this in April, or you wanted it to be tagged in your PSA at a specific start date or effective date, you can either adjust this from here, or of course you can just reconcile the vendor in the month of April, even though you're actually in May, either or, okay? But you can change this, you can do whatever you want with it. And then when I press sync, this now flows across. And then if I click into Autotask, you'll see that there, that this has now been created verbatim. We're on a chart, we're on the charges screen, I should just confirm. Right, we're on the charges screen here. So it's not associated with services, it's purely and simply applying itself here. And then from a ConnectWise world, similar thing. It creates the addition here on the fly with the same numbers, okay, that we see on the other side. But this time round, we have a start and we automatically apply the cancel date because we're billing for that period and that period alone within ConnectWise Manage. Everything else is identical to one another. Okay, it's just the way that the two systems sort of that we talk to either of those systems. So the workflow, same as normal, bring through the data, do the mappings. Naturally, in the subsequent months, okay, if it knows, oh yeah, this is Azure, I've done this before, it's going to automatically find the product ID, and you just work through and fix, like adjust, like push the changes in. And anything you change for this month, 15%, 12%, it's going to be retained moving forward as well. Okay. The other thing that we do also show, if you had last month you did Azure, this month we do Azure again, or Telco, like any of them, right? But this warnings here, which is quite useful to go, hey, Bob's design was visible last month, we're not billing it. So exact same concept to all the other vendors from a recurring perspective. This travels into this as well. Okay. So if you can think about in your own mind, right, where this may be useful, where if you're thinking, oh, I do this through a distributor already and it syncs through, like for those products, it may not be required, right? Like think about the problems that you're having right now and you may want some additional help with, or if you want some greater control and or some greater flexibility with it, it may be worthwhile considering putting it through CloudOlive universally for these consumption-based things. It's really up to yourself. Like we just want to provide the tools and the flexibility to be able to have choice in how you bring this through. There's also a number of partners of ours that choose at the moment, because it's just a really difficult, gnarly problem to solve, is they bill through maybe a third party or elsewhere and don't actually have that useful information and data anywhere within their PSA. So if you wanted to then bring this in, just more from a reporting perspective, so you've got everything now centralized in your PSA of choice, it gives you a very simple way to achieve just that. So I think there may have been a question just pop up. Does the addition always require a cancel date? It does. So yes, we're pushing these in as a one-time charge, but we did actually think about this, right? Especially for what I tell is less relevant, but for ConnectWise, I could see this in, like, realistically, you could create them and then you can make bulk updates, right, in ConnectWise. In our mind, we're like, maybe this could actually be used for implementing that system in the not too distant future, or like knowing what it's going to do for the cancel date, filter on it, then make an adjustment for whatever you need to do. Hopefully that's given a so there's another question come through. I'll answer that in a sec, but do feel free to keep them coming through. So the question actually was, this looks great. We receive our Azure from our distributor. We're given two lines. One is the charge and one is a partner and credit. We deduct this. Yeah, totally. So that's a good example, right, where we need some extra logic to be able to go, like the cost is $1,000. We get given $100 back. They're two separate line items that really should give us a unique cost of $900. No doubt we would be able to collapse them. And if you think about how would we create an ID if the customer end client name's visible on both of them, just very simple, would probably just merge those two things together. A minus B gives you the answer. But they're absolutely the sort of calculations that we love to do and sort of really where we shine. But thank you for the question. I'm confident that we'd be able to bring in the right information. We could also bring in and even display to you here, hey, your partner and credit is X amount. I suppose it's even going to be calculated up here, but if there's extra data you wanted to come in from an additional column or a property from within your Azure, no doubt we could bring that in. So at least it's in the user interface and you don't have to dig through all of the sometimes tens of thousands of lines that some of these files actually produce. But yeah, this is what it would look like. So naturally, if you're using it every single month, then this would, yeah, you can see the history of these things, which again is one of the other benefits of the product into a charge in these systems, is that you can see the history quite quickly rather than services, which is not that easy to then do. Another question in relation to Azure, does this work with a fixed price? Good question. We could tell the template to always have a fixed amount. Could we? Let me have a think about that offline. I'm sure that we could elevate the amount. Like you just need to tell us in almost like a catalog, if you will. A should equal this. Let me have a think about. Let me take that offline afterwards. Yeah, that's a really good question. I would like to think we can do that. It's sort of stuff that we're pretty handy at. Off the top of my head, it doesn't come to me immediately, but I'm sure, let's think about it afterwards, Chris. Okay, cool. So actually, one of the small thing, right, that we've had someone come in and work with us from a user experience perspective, just a little bit, right? Speak to some of our clients. So really appreciative for those who've taken calls with Liz and to go through some of that. But just some little things, right? We want this to be the easiest and most elegant piece of software to use that you ever put your hands on. And we appreciate that that's not where it's at by any stretch, right? There's a lot of data there. Just a real simple, small thing. Like you notice, we often get asked, what does the trash can do? And we used to have a trash can on every single line going. And we were like, that was actually our UX team came in and was like, why is that? And it was realistically, you never use, right? So we've just moved that now in behind here, just out of the way. And we will be looking to deliver some meaningful updates to the user experience in the next coming releases, and then look to likely do more of an overhaul with dashboards, etc. in the new year. But if there are items that you're like, oh man, why do they do it like this? Please email me at adam@cloudolive.com when you're having that headache or whatever. We would love to hear it in the flow of motion and see how we can address that as quickly as we possibly can. Always as much feedback, good, bad, or indifferent as possible. So what to expect at the end of this month, okay? We recognize that we've completely outgrown our FAQ within the system, right? So down here, we've got an FAQ that's great for, hey, how do you connect systems up? Some simple things, but we appreciate now we need the Rolls Royce. So we're going to be deploying a complete documentation system, module by module, and you can expect that in probably early next month will be when it becomes available. To access that, you're literally going to click on that FAQ and it will bounce you into that. We will have an authentication behind it. Okay, so you will need to log into it. We will send you all the relevant information so you can make sure you can maximize the use and the value out of that. Basically for the last 6 to 9 months, every single response that's required from a client, we've blind copied an email into ourselves, and we've built this around real world questions and queries that are coming from companies that are really maturing to CloudOlive and those who are just coming through and implementing. With NC Easy, so a couple of things that were rolled out in this last release as well, and some other things that are going to be coming very, very soon. So a couple of things that I suppose for next time round, right, that we knew that we wanted to be able to offer were additional filters here. So similar to how you've got this type of filter, but we really need to be able to go, show me the annual, and then filter on the expiration date of that. Like that's what you really want to be able to drive into, right? Monthlies, you want to be able to sort of move out of the way for now, because you want to focus on the things that have an annual commitment on the horizon. When's it coming? How many unassigned licenses do we have? So in this next release, that will be available. The other thing that we've started to read is the provider name. So provider name is the distributor of choice that you're buying this from. And what's been interesting is that because we read from the customer tenancy, right, from Partner Center, is that we maybe capture more than what is getting purchased through the MSP that's using CloudOlive. So there's going to be a filter up here also that allows you just to see other things across the entire access to your Partner Center. And that can mean a couple of things, right? It could be some cross-sell opportunities that you might go, we'll bring them onto our paper. Good to know. This is when it's expiring. You'll be able to see all of that information in one place. Or of course, you go, oh, we know this. This isn't like, for whatever reason, we're never this is handled through a different department or reason or whatever. Then you can hide these things or ignore them indefinitely, and they just live behind here. You can search for them, you can find them, all the rest of it, but they're just going to now ignore it, and they won't be in your main view every single month. So expect additional filters. The other thing that will be that with this next release, one of the pieces we found is that there can be a little bit of a delay between a change in the API of Microsoft and what's actually accessible in the API itself. So we've looked to access different endpoints now with additional information. So as of this next release, it syncs every night, right? But you'll be able to then force syncs and have much more confidence in both the user names that we're polling and seeing, and the counts and who's actually assigned to these licenses, and the unit counts that are available, that are either unassigned or at the headline number of what's available. So the future, like after that, right, where the two major items that we're looking at here are bulk updates. So all changes, yes, accept, push. From a reconciliation perspective, or from a chart, like a consumption-based perspective, like a big time saver, right? Especially for those who've got dozens or even more lines to manage and handle. And we're looking at a way to like bring a single screen that pops up, and then you can still make some last minute adjustment and push it in. But just the timing of it, and reverse reconciliation. So being able to see from within the MRR Insights module, within here, there'll be a new column that appears, which very simply has, when was this service inside my PSA last reconciled, and from where? Was it done through CloudOlive, through the Pax8 vendor in April of 2023? It could indicate that that's maybe a problem, that you like it may have cancelled off from the vendor and you're still on billing it. Okay, so it will make it very easy. We'll also make it where you can override and say, don't worry, we don't, like, it's fine, it's never going to change, we don't care. We'll have the ability to very easily and quickly identify where maybe there's line items that you either haven't reconciled for a while or need to. And we've now started to get our hands on a ton of different sandboxes on, like there's about a dozen different vendors that we're really pushing hard to get direct APIs in. We got sandboxes for many of them. A lot of the key distributors, like essentially those that are driving user-based counts for you, and those that are driving device-based counts. We want to be able to take from a central source of truth with infinite flexibility to give you the number is 10 for this thing, and you rely on that, like, and making it really seamless, right, to be able to pull that information directly from APIs. Just know that we're working on that right now in the background amongst everything else, and we're really adamant to get that out to you when, like obviously when it's ready. But just from a user experience perspective, we like all of this needs to be seamless and maintain the accuracy that CloudOlive has always provided to all of our partners. That's about it, and we're generally pretty good at wrapping up on time. So we've got about a minute more. If there's any more questions, drop it in. There's one more that that's come through just in terms of implementing this. So yeah, everybody's got access to this. Actually, I should know, we had talked about potentially charging for this as an add-on. We're not going to do that. Like, this is included for all of our partners. We've never actually gone back to partners and added additional modules, et cetera, onto it. This is available for anyone and everyone. If you want to jump on a session and maybe configure it with you, like with us, or go through your specifics, then just jump on either the link on the website and book in, and or like any of my emails that you might have, and we'll make sure we've got it as well, like a partner link in the email that will come out to you, and that'll be directly in with our team that can help make sure that you're getting the most out of this, and or address any sort of curveball questions that you might be thinking of or might crop up after this. But if there's no more questions, we've got 8 more seconds. We thank you as always for your time, and yeah, keep pushing us to build cool stuff for you. We're enjoying it. Have a good day, everyone.